Hey everybody, how are we doing tonight? This is V Man from No Budget Productions, and with me tonight is Michael L. King. Michael, how are we doing tonight, brother?
Doing very good. Thank you. How are you?
Uh, I'm here, man. It's a great night, man. I got to tell you, out of all the Pizza Roll Diaries, this has been probably one of my most anticipated ones. Not only from me, but from a lot of the people in from my fan base.
Oh, come on
Uh,
now. You're going to make
no,
me blush.
no, like you are one of the
You-
people that I talk up, a lot, and a lot of people. I mean, dude, you're Captain Bishop.
Man,
Um,
you're going to make a black guy blush, okay? You don't want to see that.
you're gonna be as red as my red hoodies that I wear in
Yeah.
my films.
Yeah.
Right on, man. Right on. So no, this has been one of my most anticipated because it's you don't do a lot of interviews. I don't think. You kind of do your own channel. So for me, it's kind of a personal. I'm very flattered to have you on. Thank you on a
No,
personal level.
I'm very, very honored to be here. I'm glad you asked me on. I mean, anything for the V Man.
Bless your heart. Well, that before we welcome everybody in the chat, I gotta say, when I first asked you to do something for me, I asked a long time ago. I was like, "Hey, would you ever wear a Kelvin uniform?" And you're like, "No." And then couple weeks ago you were like, you know what, all right, I'll do it. Like, I gotta say, man, like I've dropped the ball on sending you the uniform because like things have come up. But I gotta say, like, you have always been very accommodating when I've asked you for something. You've been always been like the type of example that I feel like fan films should be. And that's why I always try to give that type of respect, because it's like you set the bar, man. You really do.
Well, I
uh,
think it's all about treating people like you'd want to be treated. So, I mean, nothing wrong with helping out.
well, and that the first time the first time you and I spoke, you were very warm, very welcoming, and you've never wavered on that. You've always led by that example. So that's one reason why, it's like any chance I get to talk to you, I don't get to talk to you enough. So I'm glad to have you on, man. So that
Thank you.
being said, we have a couple people. We have Craig Crook. It looks like he left a comment a couple days ago. Said 1 a.m. Sunday. I'll try and make this one, even though I've got no idea what a pizza roll is. And I say that's a crime if you don't know what a pizza roll is. It's like the best thing ever to eat. So if you don't know, we got to get you up to speed on that one. We got Frank Parker Jr. here. He says hi all. Hey
Hello,
Frank, how are
Mr.
we doing?
Parker.
We got Donna Parker. How are we doing, Donna?
Hello, Donna.
And then we got the man himself, William Wells. Bill,
Uh,
how we doing, Bill?
William, always good to see William.
Oh yeah, oh
Great
yeah.
guy. Great guy.
He's a legend himself. Then we got Jim's Landscape LLC, the good old Commodore Boone himself.
Hello, Jim.
Let's see. All right, so that's who we got right now. That being said, uh, tomorrow morning, for those who are tuning in late or in the chat, tomorrow morning I have at 9:30 a.m. I have Ray Tessie, who's going to be on the Pizza Roll Diaries. And for those of you that don't know, Ray Tessie is from the Neutral Zone Studios down in Georgia. We'll be chatting. Him and I had a wonderful conversation a couple weeks ago. Him and I chat off and on, and he had reached out and asked if he could be on the Pizza Roll Diaries. I was like, of course, dude, you're fucking awesome. First time I met that guy was at the Promenadicon a couple years ago, and then he invited me down for an open house again, separate, but a couple of years ago. And he's done Starship Republic. Like I said, he's the owner of Neutral Zone Studios, but wonderful guy. So if you guys want to tune in for that, I know Sunday morning is kind of an unusual time for me, but that was what was available for him. So if you guys can tune in, awesome. If you guys can't, watch the rewind. I don't mind. I'm not really in it for the number of clicks and likes. I'm just more in it for the camaraderie. So feel free to watch. And then Monday morning, I have Steve Atwell. If you guys are familiar with my films, he plays the Klingon Korath. He's also a cosplayer, and he's a guy that Michael and I had met at one of the conventions when we went to, what was that, TopCon, Michael?
Yep. TopCon,
Yeah.
Kansas.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a convention up there. We brought the bridge to, and that's where The Klingon Korath. We met Frank Jenks is his last name.
Yep. Frank
Yep.
Jinks. That's where we met him.
Yeah, we
Yep.
met him there. But if you guys are available on Monday, we got Korath coming stopping by there. So it's gonna be busy 3 days for me. So if you guys can, tune in. If not, catch it on the rewind. I'm good. So, but I hope you guys enjoy that because they're great people to talk to. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy it. So, but anyway, for tonight, the man of the hour is Michael L. King, and one of my personal heroes, personal one of my best friends in the fan film, and I mean that when I write the character of Menard and how he feels for Bishop, I'm really honestly always speaking from the heart of how I feel because the guy brought me into fan films, and if it wasn't for this guy, I wouldn't be here. So, Michael, what have you been up to lately? Because you're kind of close. You keep your cards close to the chest. What have you been up to, man?
I've actually been taking it kind of easy. I am supposed to be writing a vignette for Valiant. The story's in my head, but I haven't written it yet. And I really do need to get on to doing that. Having full time work, full time family, sometimes it's kind of hard to get focused. But the goal is to write this vignette, which I think is going to be pretty good. And as far as Valiant goes, Brady is actually writing a continuation of Ties That Bind.
So the $1 million question that everybody had on their mind of whether we were going to continue doing ties to bind, we are then we're going to continue that.
Yes, we are. It's always been something that I wanted to do, but originally though that story was 101 pages, so it's going to be totally changed from what it was. But I've always wanted to come back to it. I really like that story.
Now is is it going to be is it going to be kind of are we going to include the what we've already shot, or is it going to be something where it's like, okay, we trust you've already seen that, here's this jumping off point, so here's the link, go see that, here we are continuing going forward, or are you going to include that the other stuff?
I think I want to include that, but I'm not for sure if it's going to work given the guidelines. We try to stick to the 30-minute time limit, and that entire sequence is like 8 minutes. Maybe if we do it again, it'll just be kind of a condensed, faster version of it, or maybe in a flashback or someone thinking or something like that. But I want to keep it, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure if we will yet.
Well, the thing about that segment is you had like it's so if you say it's 8 minutes, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels shorter, but it's so packed full of good stuff to it. You get a sense of the crew. I know Andre is in that. Kelly's her name.
You mean Kelly, who played Kennedy?
No, no, well, not kidding. I'm shoot. What the captain? What
Oh, Crystal.
Crystal? I'm terrible with names. That's why I'm always like, hey, brother, how we doing? I'm
Yeah,
terrible with names.
yeah,
Yeah,
she's
Crystal's in.
great.
Yeah, and then you had that. Her name starts with an R. She's done some acting stuff now or modeling. She
Uh,
played the at Sulu or Chekhov
oh,
station.
Rianne.
Yes, yeah. See, again, I'm terrible with name. I know who they are and what they do. I don't know their name. But yeah, no, you had like you really got a sense that this was a close knit crew. And that segment was so important. Getting with them. And maybe it was just the fact that I spent all day on set, chilling with those people and got to know them as people. So when I saw the characters, I was like, man, these are really cool people. But yeah, no, that segment was really important. So we're actually returning to that show. Is there anything you can talk about in terms of what story you want to do for that, or what we're going to be doing, or is that too much spoiler territory?
Well, no, honestly, after we shot that scene, and it was a blast to shoot it. There was just so many great people there, including yourself. By the way, you did help me shoot behind the scenes pictures on that too, and that was great. Uh, I really hadn't thought too much about the story. I don't know if you've talked to Craig Fry.
Yeah.
Uh, he helped me write the first script for that. Craig's
Hmm.
actually a writer,
Hmm.
And the guidelines hit. We abandoned that story, and then Brady came along and said, "Hey, I've got a treatment that I'm working on, and I want you to read it, see what you think." But I haven't got the treatment from him yet, so I'm not quite sure how we look on that. Um, if it's good, Brady will end up writing the whole thing. I might add some things, but so far I don't know what he's come up with. So
Because I
that's
know
where
that
we are.
I know when you and I, like you went into some pretty depth, stuff for the, for ties that bind, when we had talked about it, and I was just like, I was sitting there blown away. I was like, man, this is Star Trek. Oh my God, this is great story. Like it was relevant to like modern stuff. Would it be possible, like maybe at some future point, to like go back to like what that is, and maybe tell it in like maybe like a 4-part segment? Or I know like modern, I know like the guidelines have it, where it's 30-minute segments, but uh, I think I've kind of proven that the guidelines are kind of lax to people that don't really have like a 50,000 or 20 $1 million budget. Would it be possible maybe to go back to that treatment, and maybe some of those things that you had, and maybe tell smaller segments out of that?
That's a really interesting question because Craig is actually going to be novelizing that script. It's going to be a written story. He
Ooh.
contacted me about 2 weeks ago and he said, "Hey, I have a question. How do you feel, since we're not going to shoot this script, how do you feel about me writing a story based on this script?" And I was
Mhm.
like, "That would be great." So we'll be able to see that story in book form when he gets done. So that's going to be cool. I'm
That
looking
is
forward
awesome.
to that.
That is
That
awesome.
writing it fixes a whole lot of problems because originally in the original story, Bishop's daughter was supposed to be kidnapped, and
Hmm.
now she's grown and she's not the little girl she was in the film anymore. So that wouldn't work today anyway unless we recast it.
Hmm.
But I'm looking forward to the book. I thought that was a really great idea, and it does something with the script to where it's just not wasted. I mean, we spent a lot of time on writing that, so it's going to be neat. It's really going to be
Yeah.
neat.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because just going based on what you had talked about, and again, I don't have all the information, but I was just like that. Really, I was like, man, this is ambitious, because you had wonderful character moments, your ideas on like what was just going on, you know massively on, the scale of what you were talking about storyline wise. I was like, this is just ambitious.
Yeah,
um
I was really looking forward to making it. It was really going to be probably the biggest thing that we done. Even if we did it based on that script today, it would be the biggest thing we'd ever done.
mhm. So going back with Starship Valiant, so you guys have two projects that you plan to do. Is So it's safe to say that Starship Valiant isn't going away anytime soon. So I know you just released Animals, which was great. I got to tell you, man, I sat there at work and I was like, man, screw doing my paperwork. I could do that anytime. I got to watch this stuff.
Thank you.
It was great, man. I mean, the visuals, like I kept looking at the planet in the background, going, man, that's really cool. Because it's stuff you don't really see in fan film stuff.
Well,
And-
and when it comes to fan films and Valiant, what I always try to think of when I write things is to do something different. And one of the things with Animals that when it was written, I set it on a planet, and a lot of the times when I write, it's due to financial where we don't have money. So I thought, well, I'll put it on a planet. That way, it'll cut down on special effects. It'll cut down on having to travel for sets and getting people here and there. And Brady, we were writing, and Brady's like, "Yeah, I think this will be a lot easier to do budgetarily." And we ended up filming it there, and it's like every scene's a special effect. So I actually made more effects. I was like, "Brady, I'm sorry, man. I thought this would work out better, but it's just every scene's a special effect. So
uh-huh.
didn't quite work that way." But we were really proud of Animals. I know that the film, it's harsh, and I know that uh, some Star Trek fans might look at it and say, "Well, this is a little bit extreme in terms of characters. This guy is just angry and he's prejudiced, and he's just not a regular Star Trek character. But I kind of make the films in a way that I like to invoke feelings on people. If someone is really don't like this guy, that's on purpose. That's how we made it, and it's based on prejudice. So we kind of thought of it as you can't really explain prejudice. Sometimes it's there. You don't know why. It doesn't make any sense. And a lot of that went into the character where he doesn't make any sense. He's just that's how he is. So we just wanted to make a statement on how unrealistic and how just silly prejudice is.
Well, and that's the thing that I like about you. Like when you did the film, and again, I'm terrible with titles. I'm as bad with that as I am with names. The one with Dr. Floyd,
Rochester Bear.
where yes, the yeah, I mean that dealt with when he talks about losing his wife, losing his daughter. Like to me, it's like that explored an aspect of the human psyche that one isn't really explored in fan films ever, and two isn't really explored in Star Trek. And to me that's just a really good human story. And I feel you and I've talked several times about how Star Trek always works best when you just tell a story that people can relate to. Um, and I feel like that same thing bleeds over very much into animals. Like you're right. Like the prejudice that this guy has, you can kind of look at it and be like, well, I know why this guy is the way he is, and it shouldn't be that way. And you look, you flip on the news today, and you're like, God, it's the same thing. It bleeds over, and
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we've heard a story on the news and we're like, I just don't understand. Why are people
yeah,
this way?
yeah,
But I think the underlying story of animals is that maybe people can change if they choose to. They don't have to, but it's just a matter of saying, I'm not going to be this way anymore.
right.
So,
Yeah, no, it worked. To me, it goes back to the same aspects of, like, is it half black, half white, from original series, where they're telling a very sci-fi story, but a very human story, So I mean, it worked very well, and
well, it's everything we put into that episode was intentional. Like some people have said, well, why did the alien help him at the end? Throughout the whole film, they were killing everybody. Why are they helping him at the end? And that's a metaphor for prejudice today. Well, someone will say, I don't like black people. Why? Because I had an experience with a black person and I don't like them. And this alien coming to help him at the end is saying that not everyone is bad.
right.
I mean, he might have just thought, I don't agree with this. This is wrong. I'm going to help this guy and this girl. So that's the thing, saying that I was just saying not everyone is bad with that scene.
Yeah, I
That's
see.
why he helped.
Yeah, I loved it because it's like, to me, when you look when you look at that, you're like, not everyone has to be this way, and to me, it's like what you don't say, is so loud, spoke,
Yeah.
it's I love
And,
that.
and I really like how you picked up on all that because you watched it and you picked up on a whole lot of that. And it's funny because a lot of people just, they don't,
Yeah,
they don't pick up on things like that.
yeah,
But,
well,
if it, to me, if I mean, we naturally assume, there's bad in every minority. There's bad in majorities. There's always going to be bad, but never once do I assume that everybody's bad. So I don't. If someone thinks, well, why is this alien helping them? I thought that you don't think a whole species is bad. So
right. Well, and that's the thing. Like, Star Trek's done that. Like the one DS9 episode where Odo tries to get the Jem'Hadar child to be different, to be something. It's like, you don't have to be what your species is. It's like there's room for growth in every. With every. We have that stigma of, oh, you're this person, you've got to be this way, oh, you're religious, you've got to be this way, oh, you're political, you've got to be this way. And that's simply not the case. People are people, and they're individuals, and they make individual choices. And I loved how you had that. It's like, to me, it's not important that it's not important why the alien helped. It's just important that the alien did.
yeah.
To me, that speaks volumes, because that allows growth, that allows change, and to me, it's like, if you can tell that story in Star Trek, why can't we why can't we have that growth for ourselves?
And then I don't believe that I don't when we make these films I don't like treating the audience like they they have to be fed every little bit of information to know what's going on. I don't think that's the case. I think people are really intelligent and they can figure it out themselves. One
Well,
thing that I was really impressed by you was that, and a lot of people haven't even noticed this, but when Sally, the security guard, the female security guard, when she's in the transporter, her hair is black. When she gets to the planet, her hair is
silver or
silver.
white, yeah.
Yeah, and you picked up on that immediately. You know, there was a transporter accident, and you realized, well, it's a transporter accident. That's why it changed.
Yep.
And initially, when we did that, Brady was like, well, well, in reality, that scene was shot like months before or after the transporter sequence, and Sally had dyed her hair. And we went back to shooting, and Brady was like, well, I can fix her hair in post. I'll make it black. And then I said, no, we'll just add a line to the script where she says my hair. And then I wrote that and I started reading and I thought, no, that's too much. I said, Sally, why don't we just have you hold your hair in one scene, in one frame? You'll just have your hair in your hand. And I said, that's all we need. And I said, people can figure out what happened. So that's what we did. And you figured it out.
Yeah, so I love that because it's like, I mean, you've got Thomas Riker, you've got you got Barkley, you got all these people upset with the transporter. It's like you finally showed a transporter accident that doesn't feel forced, and some people didn't get it, and I'm like, dude, it's so obvious, like, and I love that because to me it's like it's such a beautiful moment because it's like it's so natural, and it looks great on the planet. To me, it fit right in. It's great. So
Yeah.
Reliant 18. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
No, I was just going to say, I just feel like people are intelligent. You don't need to
Yeah,
tell them everything.
yeah. No, and that's exactly it. Like,
And
why?
but they're trained that way by film and Hollywood films. There's so much information that people are given. They put us in this mind frame where we're just supposed to sit back and we're not supposed to think. We're not supposed to be involved in the movie. We're just supposed to be force fed everything. And
Well,
that's not how I feel film making should be.
well, the thing I like about your films, and again, like this is why I feel like you and I could speak for like 5 hours and still not touch the scope of what we could do or accomplish, or what we actually think on every subject. It's like an hour feels like 2 minutes, at least to me, because it's like we don't have to give you the information. It's like we want you to you answer. What do you think? Why do you think the alien didn't do this? Why do you think the hair is like this? Why do you think, like, if we have to answer everything for you, then we failed as a filmmaker. Like, the whole thing is to make you ask questions. The whole thing is to make you think about the product. The whole thing is, when you're driving home and you're going, you know what, that was kind of weird. That was kind of an experience. Like, I wonder what happened. Like, the fact that you're still thinking about it, like, that means, that's great. If we answered everything, then you just turn your brain off. You're like, I don't care. And then
Yeah. And
it's kind of pissed.
usually the films that you love, that you think about, that are always with you, are films that have questions like that you can, years and years later, you still think about those movies. And there's not too many movies made like that anymore.
Well, hell, some of the YouTube people, especially on the Matrix, if you go and you type in Matrix theory, they've got all these theories about a movie that had a trilogy, years and years ago, and it's like you're sitting there and you're like, that's kind of an interesting thought process, and that's kind of the way you should have people who've got all these conspiracy theories on all these different things, and you're like, dude, I just made a film. I don't know,
Yeah.
so
I'm sure the director's like, beats me. I don't know. What are these people talking about? I mean,
right.
it's been 50 years now and they're still talking about this movie.
It's like, I was just there for a paycheck. I don't
Yeah.
know. So Reliant 1864 asks, "Do you think that the USS Constar and the USS Valiant will ever cross paths?" Um, I'll answer me, and then Michael can answer. For me, I feel like we sort of have, but I did leave it open in. I forget the name of again. I forget the name of the film.
Well, you've made like 150, so
It's getting up there. Um,
how many
I,
have you made?
um, I've got 100 right now on YouTube, and I've got 12 more coming, and then I've got a plan for next season, which has quite a bit. So,
Wow.
but next season is it. I've got to be done after
Look,
that. Like,
of those films, how many have you personally written yourself, you would say?
All of them except for, I want to say maybe four. I think four of them have been. Greg Teft wrote one, which I allowed him to produce when we went to Wolf's. He shot it all up there. I cut one of my films. And was like, go ahead, do your film. We'll film it here while we're here. Greg Mitchell, I believe, has done two, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and yeah, and then he's got one that's upcoming. So I think two or three from Greg. So maybe five, because then he's got one upcoming and he's got the CGI one. So maybe five that weren't written by me.
Well,
So the
you're
rest of them
well,
are.
you're real good at doing characters, and that's one thing about your films. I've watched all of them, I think, and the way you handle the characters is really good. And some of your stories are really realistic in terms of, and that's something we try to do in Valiant. We try to make stories that are relatable, that people can watch and say, "Hey, I've felt that way before. I've done those kinds of things. I've been in this situation." And I think you do a really good job of writing these films, not only writing these films, but bringing the fandom together. That's the most admirable thing I can say, that you really bring fans together, and that's really, really great.
Well, I think, I mean, and you can attest to this. Back when I first came in, like it very much was kind of cutthroat. Um, and like nobody wanted me in their films. Like I'd be like, "Hey, we should do this," and they'd be like, "Yeah, we don't want no, yeah, okay," and they kind of smile and nod. And I had the desire to do it and to help. I had the time. And I always felt kind of slighted by that. You know, um, not angry, but just kind of like, dude, you got a guy that wants to help. um, and they'd get professional people to come, and they took a lot of pictures, but they never got a lot of shit done. And the one thing I enjoyed working with on your sets is we took pictures, but we weren't there for picture taking. We got in, we got out, we left, and that was that. um, so to me, it was like I kind of wanted to eliminate that. I mean, we still got it today because of course people have egos, but to me it was like, fuck the egos. I just want to
Yeah,
go. you know I just want people to work together. It's not about
yeah,
me on top or you on top. It's
yeah.
just
It
let's have
back
fun.
at back in those days, it's like fan films were like. I was thinking, man, these people take this stuff way too seriously, man. I
Yeah,
mean, goodness gracious.
yeah.
If it isn't any fun, it's not worth doing. And I just didn't see a whole lot of fun in the some of the earlier fan films. But the ones that were not as funded as some of the big films, the smaller productions, it always did seem like they enjoyed what they were doing. And
Yeah.
some of them today, George's films, Randy's films, your films, people are having fun. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about the experience and having fun, and meeting new people. And I think the smaller productions are just really great at doing that. It I don't know. I just feel like sometimes people just make it harder than it needs to be.
Well, and the thing is, like, when you're traveling, I know for me at the time it was like 4 hours to get to you, and then like now it's like 6 hours to get to Wolves, and like 18 hours to get to Ray's. It's
Yeah,
like when you're traveling like that, you know, um, you don't want to have to worry about, what is so and so going to say about me, or what is so and so think about me, or what is this Facebook put. Like, you want to be like, man, let's go have dinner. Because I know last time I saw you, it was when we were on our way to, like, Mona and I were on our way to New Orleans, and you
yeah.
had not met
I
you had not met Royce.
I looked at that picture just a couple of days ago.
Oh, did you?
We took a
And that
picture in front of the
Yep.
restaurant.
Yep. And like, that was, to me, that was, for as much as we've seen each other, oh, maybe a dozen times or so, I'd say. But it's hard to believe, like, we've known each other for 7 years.
Yeah, it doesn't seem
And
like it.
no, no, it doesn't. And at that point, you hadn't met Royce yet, and I was like, we need to stop in and see Michael, so he could meet Royce. um but when you're traveling that distance, like, if you're not having fun doing what you're doing, um because some of the best times is before you film. going and getting, the breakfast, or after the shoot going and getting the dinner. I know Scott Johnson and I we spent many a time at the IHOP, after filming, or me on his couch where his cat's fucking scratching my head. Everybody was like, "Man, Nate did a really good job on those scratches." I'm like, "That fucking cat, yeah, it
That
wasn't
cat
me."
was psychic. It knew what needed to be done.
Right, right. So, that being said, um, what would you say has been, because you've been behind the scenes on a lot of on a lot of the stuff that's gone on in fan films. What would you say has been the biggest change in fan films since you started this? Because you when I had met you, you've been doing it for what was it, a couple years or a
Yeah,
couple months? Like,
I think just a couple of years.
hmm
Yeah, maybe 1 year,
hmm
because I think we filmed the special edition like a year later
hmm
when you came down for that. Which we met at, where exactly did we meet? I was trying to remember that the other
no,
day.
hmm
Where did we meet?
we I had come down. Richard Wells had invited me because I was doing a bunch of advertisements for people online, and
Was that for an open house when you came down?
no,
No.
they there was nothing like an open house. The first time there was like an open house type event was the Promenadicon, because I really wanted every fan film to have their own booth type thing. They were shooting for they had a thing for George Takei, up there,
Oh, okay.
and Richard Wells kind of used that to show, hey, here's this, could you advertise for our studio? I was like, sure, why not? And I was like, what exactly is this? Because I had no idea what it even was. So he kind of explained, hey, we make films. We have a bridge set. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And he's like, well, we're filming this weekend if you want to come. And I was like, oh, you got a bridge? Oh, that's awesome. Like that would be cool. So I went down to, I called Mona. Was like, hey, there's this bridge. It's 4 hours away. I'd love to go. I'd love to go sit in the captain's chair. So I went. And while I was there, I guess you had seen me.
Yeah, the thing I remember is that I remember looking at you and I remember thinking, he's got the face of an engineer. He looks like an engineer. And I remember telling Scott, I've got to ask this guy if he'd want to play the engineer, because you had that face, the beard, the mustache, everything looked perfect for an engineer. At least I thought so.
Which is funny because I can't turn the screw. I don't know. It took I think I was like 30 before I knew the difference between a Phillips head screwdriver and a flathead. And Mona was like, "It's flat, fucker." I'm like, "Oh, like, oh, all right." My dad would have been so proud. but yeah, like you met, like I was there. I kind of stayed out of everybody's way, and then I drove home. I got my picture in the captain's chair, took some pictures of the station. I thought this would be really great advertisements for the studio, and then left. I got home. I got home the next day. I'm at work, and you. I remember the first message you sent me. It was like, "Hey, you want to be in my movie?" And I'm like, I had no idea who you were, but I was like, what, like porn? And you're like, no, I make fan films. I was
You're
like,
like,
oh. So it was, and you were like, yeah, you've got the look of an engineer. And I was like, oh, which I found really funny. Cause again, like I can't fix nothing. Like Mona's the one that does the oil changes. She's the one that does like everything. Like I'm like, where's the oil? Like, there's the 710 cap. Like, what is that? And she's like, no, fucker. And she turns it around. It says oil. I'm like, oh, it's not 710. Okay, yeah, I don't. Damn. So yeah, it's
I,
funny that you chose me for engineer because I'm like
well,
not mechanically inclined.
we actually never seen you fix anything on the ship, so I don't know.
So yeah, yeah, it's probably why. So, oh man, see, and
But
this is
and
this.
I remember when we shot that, you were at the studio, but you were kind of like far in the back,
Mhm,
where all that stuff is back there in the background of the studio. And Ben was working with you. And I
mhm.
remember Ben telling me, this guy's natural. He's really good. And he was really,
Oh,
I don't know if he ever told you, but yeah, he told me, he goes, this guy's a natural. He's really good. And I agree. I think you're a natural. I'll watch your films and I'll see you act, and I'll just think you just seem so natural.
Well, the thing I think most people get hung up on, and again, like may, I don't know if it like I don't know if it's I'm a natural or maybe I'm doing it wrong. um, but like when I write a script, and I tell this to my actors too. And anyone listening at home, if you're doing a fan film, like I would recommend doing it this way because it makes it easier for everyone, especially newcomers. Um, have everyone paraphrase like what you're doing, or what their lines are, but tell them it's like a dance. You can, there's a little wiggle room there, but keep in mind the other person, their lines won't change. So if the line isn't quite working for them, they can say it how it feels natural for them. Because sometimes you get a script and you're like, fuck, I can't make this line work.
Hmm.
But if you change it slightly so that it fits your vocabulary, then it works. And
Yeah.
as long as the other person, their lines still make sense for you, you get them to where they need to go. Most people won't notice. And I know when we were working on Ties That Bind, I had four sentences and I forgot the last one each time. And I think Wolf was like, "Hey, he forgot the last line," and you're like, "I didn't even notice." But like everything came out so natural, you're like, "It's good," and
Yeah.
that really stuck with me, and it because it didn't add anything, and you're like, "No, it doesn't really change what's going on," and that really stuck with me. So anyone who's doing a script, like I would recommend doing it that way because it is a dance. You get the other person where they need to go, so there is a little bit of wiggle room. Where I feel most people's faults is where they try to get it word for word, and then they're not being a person. They're being a person on a they're being just a character on a page, and that's not real. And where you and I think are in agreement is we care more about the emotion of the scene rather than with the words on the page.
Yeah.
I mean,
I,
as long as you're not saying like, if it's supposed to be a warp core breach and they say, oh, it's a transporter, no, fuck, cut. That's not, no. Get the intent of the scene, not necessarily the words.
well,
Um,
I can't count how many times a script, the lines have been changed in a script that we've done. I mean, sometimes what you write just doesn't sound natural when it's said, and
right.
uh, lots of times actresses and actors can't say a line that way because it's just not them. It doesn't sound right. So a
Yeah.
script is a guideline, not the. It's just something you're supposed to follow in the story, but it doesn't have to be said that way. And lots of times in scripts, things that you write just don't work, so you have to
Yeah.
change it.
Yeah. It sounds good, but once you get there, you got to have a little bit of wiggle room. And especially, uh, and I always tell this story, especially to the new people who are kind of nervous. I had a lady who, we were supposed to shoot in like 4 hours, and we were going to shoot after work. And I was on the freezer floor here at work, and she came up to me. She's like, Vance, I'm really nervous. I'm like, well, why? She's like, because I've never acted before. I'm like, so don't worry about it. You'll be fine. And she's
It's
like,
like you
well,
want to say, "Have you talked before?"
yeah,
There you
that's
go.
about it.
That's all you
And she
need.
and, and she was like, "Well, I've never read the script." And I'll be honest, and I was like, "That's okay. I haven't read the script either, and I fucking wrote it. Like, how bad is that? Like, you'll
Yeah.
be fine." Like,
How many times have you been in the situation where you haven't read the scenes until you get the lines until you get to that scene? First time.
well, that's
Yeah.
exactly. Well, that's exactly. I mean, the thing that I love, like you and I have a lot of good chemistries on set. Enough where when we did the Barabbas stuff, I think like another scene was written that we included in the Valhalla Stone, where Menard and Bishop share a scene where I think Menard walks on the bridge and then Bishop comes up and says a thing. Like that was written like the day before.
Yeah,
Initially
I
that
remember.
wasn't written.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, initially that wasn't there, but it was because you and I had some good chemistry and we acted pretty well off of each other. And that's the type of stuff that you have to really go by. Chemistry is natural. You can't force something like that. When you see something that clicks, you're like, okay, we got to have, you got to have more of
Well,
that.
in Valiant, we initially when we first thought about it, we wanted to spot before the guidelines hit. We wanted to spotlight every crew person kind of develop the character, tell the audience a little bit about him before we went into the main film. And that's, after the guidelines hit, I was kind of bummed out about it and thought, oh, we can't do this now. We can't do this. I wanted to do this. And pretty much, I'm still in that introduction stage where we introduce Bishop to the people, then we introduce Doctor, then we introduce the security guard. And there's actually a story. You were supposed to be in one of those introduction episodes.
Mhm.
And I don't think I ever wrote it, but I still have the story in my head. And I remember telling you that, I got this story. We got to do it, because I wanted to show Menard to the audience. One of these days, I have to have a story based on Menard because
Well,
we,
see, that,
we really haven't featured him yet. And I'd really like to do that.
well, see, that was one reason why, like, I was so scared, and like now, I'm not, because you're always like, nah, do whatever you want, like it's fine, and I'm so thankful, that you gave me the freedom to do that, because, people, like, they don't realize, like, Menard is your character, it's not mine. Like, if you ever, like, look, fat man, you're messing up my stuff, but I mean, realistically, like, I really think about it, like, when I put on that red TOS uniform, like, no, this is Michael's character, so I always kind of tread lightly when I do something in a red 2S uniform, because it's like, once I get to next gen stuff, it's like, it's more flexible, because Bishop's not really paying attention to him, he's let him off the leash, I'm good, but like, when I'm in the Valiant shirt, it's like I kind of represent Valiant at that point, and it's like I got to be careful, because it's like, does this break something Michael's done before,
Yeah, I'm pretty flexible.
no, that's the thing that I love about you, is you've always given the freedom. And I remember, when I wrote the fan film Menard, which showed the death of Emily, I asked you, I was like, can I use footage from your film, which was the battle with the Sukalon? Because I felt like that would add to what was actually going on with, showing Emily's
Plus,
death.
it was kind of a time holder too, so you knew when it happened and all that.
Yeah, yeah. And you were very gracious. You were like, yeah, go ahead, by all means, and something you had said the other day in your, um what is it, not documentary,
The
it
podcast.
yes, with Brady, you were like, if somebody wants to use my film, go ahead, it doesn't, I don't own it, and to me, like, I've never thought of it that way, you know um but to me, it's like that very much is in tune with who you are. It's like, you've always been that way, where it's like, if I can help you out, I'm going to do it, and you've always been that way, where whether it was, yeah, go ahead, use your use the character, do what you want, or go ahead, use the footage, it's fine, whereas, like, it just, that elevated that story so much, and it could have easily been a really bad story, but I felt it was really,
That was a really great episode. The way you did it with the not using too much dialogue and all that, and I thought it was really good. That was a really good episode.
well, and the thing I enjoyed most, like, one of the best things, like, when I think about it, like, it gets me emotional. There was a guy who, he had lost his wife the previous year, and when he had watched that fan film Menard, he said that it actually helped him kind of get through some of the struggle that he had with losing his wife. And at that moment, that was the moment where I was like, I now know why Michael does this. Like, it's not about, hey, look at me, guys, I'm a fan filmmaker. Like, because obviously you and I know the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into these things.
Yeah.
It's about making those connections with people, and telling a good story, and I think the relationship between Eric and Emily is, like, I really think that's, like, it's kind of like our Riker and Troy, it's a very special relationship. And
I I enjoyed that episode so much that initially I had thought in doing a story about your character that we needed to put Emily in that story because I felt like there was some really good chemistry between the two of you. I thought,
mhm.
and Yafa is just so jovial. She seems like she would be so fun to
Oh yeah.
actually make a film with.
Oh yeah, I tell you, she's one of the sweetest. She's one of the sweetest people, and one of the questions I get from people, that don't really know a lot about the fan film stuff, and they see the film with Eric and Emily. they're like, does your wife get mad? And I'm like, why would they get mad? Like, why? And I'm like, no, like Mona and her get along like famously. Like when we go up there and visit, like Yava actually came to our hotel and she's like, all right, Vance, you go get breakfast. I'm gonna hang out with Mona. And they visited for like an hour and a half, and I'm like, ah, shit, the girls are together. What am I gonna do now?
Well,
But it's
Mona's great. You have a great wife. Mona's just anytime I ever think about Mona, I think about her fondly. She's just a great person. She's really fun to be around.
yeah, she's a wonderful person. Like she puts up with a lot for me. You've got to be pretty pretty good
Well,
person to put up.
if you're in the habit of making Star Trek fan films, then your partner, I kind of feel sorry for them because they dealing
They
with
have
that and us and all that. It's not easy.
a very thick skin, huh?
Yeah.
So we had the rock thing. Would you ever consider? I know we had talked about it at one time. Is that something that still might be on the horizon, coming up here more
You know,
my way, and then using that? Because
I, I I think that was going to be just kind of. I like that background, the way that looked and everything. I think I was going to try to write something in the story that we could use that background in, but that's been so long ago. I'm just not sure anymore. I don't
Mhm.
even know if I would do that story that I wrote back then. It'd probably be something different now. And I think I put your character on the back burner because you've explored that character so great
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
I'm not sure there's anything new we can tell about him.
No, there's well, and that's yeah, that's one of the like when I first started doing like the Menard films, like I kind of wanted to be like the O'Brien, where it's like when you first get to DS9, you didn't really need to have any O'Brien episodes because it's like you had, how many years on Next Gen, you already knew him, so you're comfortable. So like for me, if all I ever get to do is come on the Valiant and just be like, press a button, aye, sir, press another button, warp core is not critical anymore. I know a flathead screwdriver, sir.
Well,
Like that's
and I think you're really right about the chemistry between those two characters. Even in Animals, that little brief scene we had on the bridge, you could just tell that these guys were just friends. I mean, Bishop doesn't seem like the kind of guy that just really opens up to a whole lot of people. He's pretty stiff, but when it comes to you, he's just kind of having a good time and joking, and you can tell there's a lot of respect that these two have for each other.
well, and Menard. All right, like
Yeah.
you can tell this is an early Menard where he's not sitting there like staring off into space brooding. Like this
Yeah,
is
I remember
it's
when we had that premiere. Someone said in the audience they were watching when your character came. They said, "Oh wow, a happy Menard."
it's definitely a Michael film. Yeah, it's yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's one of those things where you're never gonna get hey Michael, write a story about me. Like I'm happy to sit in the background and be the guy that walks up to you, pat you on the shoulder, and all right, let's go grab a Romulan ale. Like
Well,
it's
I mean, if you think about the Valiant, I don't know how long they were out in space, but there had to be a ton of adventures that
right,
Menard had with these people. So I guess there's plenty of room to write something for
right.
this character.
Well, to me, it's one of those things where like the way I envision it, and again, like the Valiant's, obviously yours. Like the way I see it is like I'm happy sitting in the background and like if you and I just have like a heart to heart. To me, it's like that's kind of the whole thing is like we're buddies. You see the respect. I think it comes across on screen. It's like it's there. Let's see the other characters. Like I've had my chance to shine. I've been doing it for like 7 years. They don't need to see me. I'm good. I'm just happy at this point. I'm just happy being there. And plus that's less lines I have to memorize, so I'm good. I can sit off screen and be like, I'm good.
I remember thinking one time you had written a story that Bishop was going to appear in one of your stories, and you were talking to him on a monitor, and you sent me the script, and I was looking at the script, and I thought, wow, he has no lines. Why do I have all the lines?
See that's the thing. Like, yeah, I think it was the one with Emily or something. Like, yeah, like every time I'm like, hey Michael, I need you to do this. You're always accommodating. You come on, you do it. And even now, like you said, you were doing something. I think, like I said, a couple weeks ago, I had messaged you, and you're like, "I'm really kind of busy." I'm like, "I just kind of need this," but I understand. And you wrote back. I think it was like a day or two later. You're like, "Hey, go ahead, I got it." And I was just like, "Man, see this, that's cool," and that's why I was like, I'm not going to give any dialogue. It's just to see Bishop in a Kelvin uniform, as the voiceovers going by, just to see that character. Because to me, we've seen him in regular universe, we've seen Mirror Bishop. To see him in Kelvin universe, to me, it's like that's kind of the beauty of doing like fan films and getting to explore. And how many people get to say, like, man, we've seen different versions, the kind of, because that's where we're at this point. It's like we get to play around with doing stuff like that, and whereas when we were kids, we didn't have that type of stuff. And so
Yeah.
to me it's like I'm living my fantasy, doing this type of stuff, because it's going to be a point where realistically we're not going to be doing this. I kind of want to live out all that stuff before we do finally, you know
Yeah.
close the shuttle bay
We'll
doors.
we'll both be just playing admirals.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So before we close, where do you where do you see the series? Where do you see your series going? Like how far do you see it going? Just a couple more and then done, or you see it going the distance,
Um,
or?
I I could probably see it going for maybe 3 or 4 more episodes. And then after that, I've had such a good time making these films and working with these people. I could see the Valiant being uh, taken over by other people because I'm getting to where I kind of like just being behind the scenes, and we would probably make films with different people, or even I've even thought about something outside of Star Trek that I would like to do, and I've also thought about doing a horror film. But me and Nate have talked extensively about doing a horror film. He's all gung ho about, yeah, let's do a horror film. But my only thing is I said, well, if we do a horror film, let's do something that hadn't been done. So far, we haven't thought of anything yet. But I think eventually we will do that film. And we'll keep doing Valiant. He's really happy with the way Animals turned out. And I've usually been the one behind the writing. And this time, Brady actually wants to write. And he is writing. So he's really happy. So we're thinking uh, within the year, 2 episodes, which I'm looking forward to. It's always a lot of fun. And as a matter of fact, the next vignette, it will star Erin. You remember Erin, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah, she's I've already talked to her about it, and she's willing
with
to play the lead part. So
with or without the makeup.
no makeup. She's playing a different character.
Oh, okay.
She'll actually
Uh,
be playing a Starfleet captain.
wow, right on, man. So we have more Valiant to look forward to. Right
Yes,
on, man. Good deal.
yes. It's usually it's funding that kind of keeps us slow go. Like you said, driving down the wolves or things like that. It really takes money to get a whole crew down there, and most of the times you hotel fees and things like that. So money just if you be realistic, money's probably what holds your production up more than anything.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When people sit there and they criticize, and I got to give you credit. Like you are the most patient person. When Melbourne first came out, I had to tell all of my actors, "Hey, follow this rule," because you had done that. You never slighted anybody who had negativity at you, and you are the most passive person on with where internet comes. Whenever they're like, "This is junk. This is," and you're like, "Thanks for watching," and I'm like. I'm sitting there jumping out of my chair going, Michael, how can you do that? And you're like, kill him with kindness, man. Kill him with
Yeah,
kindness. And I'm like, what? But that's the one thing that I've you do, and they don't realize when you have a budget, or like in my case, no budget, or like your only budget is like the $1,000 fundraiser that you did for uniforms. Like
yeah,
you don't have anything. You really are doing this for love. You know, they want to sit there and nitpick, but how can you nitpick something that's done out of love? That's like bitching at your 4-year-old kid that draws your picture for the refrigerator, and you're like,
Well,
this likeness sucks.
yeah,
What?
unfortunately, that's you get it with every film. I mean, there are people
Yeah,
that'll watch an entire film and they'll leave a comment and say, well, that uniform was wrong, or something like that. And I always just kind of think, it's kind of sad that that's all you took from our film.
yeah.
That's not what we intended to say with the movie. We just, we wanted to say something, and that you just picked up the uniforms were didn't fit, or something like that. It's just kind of sad to me.
Well, and the fact that if they were on the set with you, they would excuse the same things that we do, because it's like once you're on set, and you tend to overlook those things because you're like, look, we can either nitpick this one aspect, or we've only got X amount of time before, if you're outdoors, before daylight breaks, or before, if we're on set before we have to go home. We only have X amount of hours in a day before people have to go back to work on Monday.
And then,
And is
the fan films, back when we first started, fan films, guy, continues. James Cawley's Star Trek fan films, Farragut, they had multi-thousand dollars in terms of budgets, money to spend for their films.
right.
But it's not like that anymore. I mean, lots of times when you have a shoot, and we've had, where we've just had to scrape together, or there was a time when a car broke down and we didn't have another vehicle to get everybody to the shoot. So I mean, you deal with stuff like that, and it's hard work. And you said it yourself, it is hard work. It's not just, the pictures can't tell the whole story. It takes a lot to put these things together, and I think people, they don't really think about that. They're really dismissive of what you do, but they don't think about all the hard work that goes into it. And it's a fan film, so when I watch a fan film, I don't expect a Hollywood movie. I expect a
No,
fan film. I mean, so I'm not sitting there thinking, oh my God, they did that in the film. I mean, it's a fan
no.
film.
Yeah, you have to be very forgiving of the negatives, and very, you know, you have to speak out for the positives, and be like, this is what I loved, and encouraging in that regard, because for every happy picture you take on the road, there's hours of like, man, I'm sweating balls out here, fuck, I just want to go home.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many, the first time I was actually on set in uniform that you had bought, like I never took that off, and I almost like I it was 120 degrees in there, and I like almost passed out from heat exhaustion. I mean, you had to force me to take my uniform off because you're like, look, take it off, because I
Well,
wouldn't do it, because I was so excited to be in uniform. And that's what people don't realize is, it's all that stuff that, yeah, we may take a happy picture, but there's so much that goes into all of these, for your armchair comment of this sucks.
yeah,
Really, they just don't get it, you
yeah.
know.
And I'll have to agree with Frank there. We do it for the love and the people that work hard with us. I have to agree. That's exactly why we do it. It's a labor of love. It's a celebration of Star Trek, the ideals that make Star Trek, and the belief that there's going to be a better tomorrow. And somebody can sit there and watch an episode and say, "Oh, that was terrible," but at the end of the day, that's not what it meant to us, and nobody can really take that experience away from us. So I just, take it with a grain of salt. And whenever you're on the internet, anyway, there's going to be people that are just mean to be mean. So
Yeah, you got to know the difference between a critic and a cynic. A critic, they'll give you, you can always kind of have a discussion with them. A cynic, no matter how good your product is, you'll never be able to impress them. So it's like
and
you have
then
to know the difference.
and then we have major Hollywood movies that people just say that sucks. So I mean,
Yep.
if they say it about Hollywood with $1 million budgets, you know what we can expect. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If somebody has a movie that's 100% all the time, like, okay, they're bought and paid for. I don't care what's going on there. That's, yeah. Well, that being said, we're at the hour mark. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut everybody short. Let it go. Um, I want to personally thank you for coming on and talking with me, man. I feel as if I let this go, we could probably talk for like 3 or 4 hours, and I still wouldn't get bored because I love picking your brain. I love talking with you.
We'll have to do it again.
Michael, I'd love to have you on anytime you're free. I will make the time. If it's on a
Thank you.
Saturday night, if it's on a Monday morning, if it's on a Sunday morning, like you tell me when you're free, and I will always make it happen.
Thank you.
Um, and I want to personally thank you. If you hadn't have reached out 7 years ago, I wouldn't be where I'm at.
Well,
And
what would you be doing if you hadn't have done your fan films? That would really be an interesting. That'd be like an interesting story there to explore that.
if I'm being honest with you, man, when you reached out, I was at a low point in my life. Um, I had a friend that sh- she was starting to kind of turn her back, and that month that you reached out, it was that was at the beginning of the month, and at the end of the month, she kind of showed her true colors. And one of the things that I held on to was, well, at least I've got this fan film thing. Um, like realistically, I don't think I would have been in as good of a place if it hadn't been for the Valiant stuff. Because
Wow.
like, I mean, it
They say
that
timing is everything.
yeah, it was it was a pretty bad deal. And I feel like when I write my scripts and I write, the kind of darker stuff, like I have a lot of that in me, and I feel like I would have been a very different person had it not been for the one thing you helped me in ways you don't in ways you just don't understand, man. And that's why I have the respect and love for you,
Well, I'm
because you've
glad
touched me
I
in
could
ways
be
you just
there.
don't know.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm. Yeah, you've really touched my life, um, because that shit fucked me up, um, and that's why I try to be the same way for other people, and I try to help because I know what your positivity meant to me. Um, I'd like to think I'd be, as happy as I am now. I don't know what I'd be doing, but I don't think I'd be as happy. And I certainly, I don't think I mean, here I am now. I've got the best life possible. I'm a dad, which is the best thing in the world. I'm not struggling as financially as I was back then, which is good for me. And I've worked my ass off for 20 years struggling. You know, you helped make a lot of that possible just by being you. So you've shown me that Star Trek dream of just being a decent human being, that kindness matters. Um, like you've proved Star Trek's real, even if we don't exist in Starfleet.
Thank you.
So yeah, no, thank you, Michael. When I say I love you like a brother, like that's what I mean, man.
Well,
That
I love
respect
you
is
too.
real. Thanks, man. So all right, well, I won't keep everybody in the audience, from I'm before I start blubbering away, I'm keeping back the tears. Michael, thank you for coming on, and I mean it. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you,
Um,
and thank everybody for watching us tonight.
Yes, thank you guys. Everybody, if you guys haven't gone to the Starship Valiant channel on YouTube, I will put a link once this video goes fully live and it's fully done rendering its thingamabob. I will put the link in the description. So click on the link and then go subscribe to Starship Valiant. Support him. He's a great content creator. And don't forget, be Ray Tessie, and then Monday morning will be Steve Atwell, which is Crorath. With that in mind, everybody, be genuine, be safe, and keep on geeking on, guys.
Thank you.